YouTube animators have some of the worst reputations on the internet, given that every 5 minutes it seems, one of them is being cancelled for doing something horrendous. From animators that are trying to stick their inflation fetish onto children, to a formerly beloved creator that's been accused of turning to the alt-right, in this video we'll be going through the absolute animaniacs that represent the community. If you're new to the channel, hello, this is part 4 of my Animayhem series. I've made 3 videos that are very similar to this in the past. They're going to be linked down in the description in case you want to check them out later. I might make small little references to previous episodes, but you don't need to watch them to understand what's going on here. Everything that might need to be explained will be in due time. With that said, we're going to kick this video off with an animator that you might already be aware of. He's an old relic of the niche who left the platform many moons ago, but he's recently made a return with a series of controversial videos. Allow me to remind you of Andrei Terbea. So just to catch you guys up to speed, in case you don't know who he is or don't remember his name, this is Andrei Terbea. Several years ago, he was one of the most popular animators on YouTube. To give him his flowers, he was doing something that not a lot of people were doing at the time, or even have done since, which was make content that fused animation with commentary. So for example, some of his most popular videos were related to KSI and Logan Paul back when they were boxing each other, or discussing why he hates family channels, or discussing James Charles, and so on and so forth. These videos were extremely clickable, with much of his most popular content reaching view counts in the millions, or even tens of millions in some cases. And on top of that, his videos were generally well liked, with Andrei reaching almost 3 million subscribers, and with him creating a total of 75 videos that passed 1 million views. However, several years ago, his content started drastically slowing down. From there, his channel started growing cobwebs as people slowly began to forget about it. However, in late 2024, he would come back with a video discussing child rearing, revealing that he had 2 young children. People realized that their births lined up with when his content began slowing down, so in theory, he probably stopped in order to focus on family. The truth is, given the amount of views he's generated on the platform and the amount of revenue I estimate that he's made on here, he could probably retire if he wanted to and just live off savings and investments for the rest of his life if he's smart with it. Andrei probably doesn't have anything to prove to anyone anymore. And after yet another lengthy hiatus, he would return to YouTube in September 2025 following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, with a series of videos that have been deemed quite controversial by a portion of his audience. Over the past few weeks, he's made commentary videos discussing topics on what's been deemed as a conservative perspective. So for example, he made content discussing why Emma Watson's interview on J.K. Rowling fell flat, or how Netflix has recently been prioritizing social messaging towards children over quality storytelling. And I'm going to play a clip from his J.K. Rowling video because it's important to this story later on. So this is a flavor of Andrei's perspective.
And in June of 2020, J.K. Rowling published a long essay online basically saying she's worried about how fast-changing ideas on gender could mess with protections for women and girls, like safe spaces in bathrooms, sports, or shelters, drawing from her own real-life experience during her early rough times. Single mom, on welfare, domestic abuse survivor, someone who had seen shelters firsthand and understood all their ins and outs. To her, it was about shielding the vulnerable, the kids, who might get caught in the crossfire of policies that blur lines too much, too quickly. And if you've ever cracked open any Harry Potter book, you wouldn't be surprised that she held these beliefs. The entire story boils down to protecting the truth, protecting the vulnerable, and standing firm in what you believe.
But the reason I'm discussing him today is because of a video he made titled How I Became Alt-Right. And this video set off alarm bells within the YouTube and animation community. Within the r/YouTube drama subreddit, this was, as of the time I wrote the script for this video, the second most upvoted post made this month. So this is apparently big news. However, while that was the title, it wasn't the whole truth. The video wasn't him just unmasking himself and going, haha, I was alt-right the entire time. It was him responding to the allegations that he was alt-right. His argument was that he wasn't alt-right, he was actually just Romanian. I kid you not. You see, Andrei was born and raised and lived in Romania, and for anyone that doesn't really know, Eastern Europe tends to be quite traditional. The problem lies in the fact that one country's left wing is another country's right wing. This is called the Overton window. So let's take the USA for example, okay? one thing that might be considered left-wing in the USA, that very same thing might be considered right-wing in, say, Norway or Sweden. He was arguing that he was just a traditional Romanian, and left-wing liberals in the States were viewing him as some sort of alt-right Nazi. Fighting back against the hate, this is what he had to say.
What also baffles me is the sheer arrogance of some of the more intense left-leaning people who commented on my previous video. Not all of them, just to be clear, but I'm talking about the type of people who get a sick pleasure from bullying creators into submission. And I bet they expected me to come out with an apology saying something like, "Oh, thank you for educating me. Please don't cancel me." And if that's the case, sorry, I'm not afraid of this hive mind mentality. I'm not afraid of being cancelled. I've cancelled myself by not even being active on YouTube these past few years. And it's the most liberating feeling to not be tied to any commitment, but instead to be able to say whatever I believe to be true. There is nothing you can do to me. Now, I do empathize with people who have followed my content for years, and because I never really spoke about my core values or political views, they may have gotten the wrong impression about what I stand for. And I will admit that at times the leftist propaganda on YouTube even got me fooled, and I may have regurgitated leftist talking points without even realizing it. But as I took a step back, I let all of that wash off of me. So to those who may feel betrayed, I respect your decision to unsubscribe if that's what you want to do. To be honest, I myself was surprised to see how different a portion of my audience sees things. I guess this goes to show how far people's perspectives can drift away when years pass and you don't really keep a steady connection to them. But I'm not even sure what exactly offends them other than the fact that I'm not a carbon copy of the influencers who pander to the leftist echo chamber ideology.
Once more, this video would see a lot of hate and pushback, specifically from people saying that the trans debate shouldn't even be up for discussion, and that trans people deserve respect and empathy regardless of their gender identity, given that they're human beings. Over the past week on Social Blade, Andrei's subscriber count has been in freefall, but given that he's now uploading content on his terms, completely uncensored and unafraid by audience backlash, it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes from here. I have a sneaky feeling that something even more punchy and controversial is on the horizon for Andrei, so I'm going to keep my eye on this one, and if something crazy happens, then I'll include him again in a future episode. But on to the next tale, we're soldiering on with quite a familiar story, that being an animation channel that is marketed towards children, but contains grossly inappropriate content. This is not the first time that we've covered channels like this. There was Shappy's Way in part 1, and then Rocky Raccoon in part 2, and who could forget the various Bluey-Gate channels in part 3. But honestly, I can't lie, out of all of them, the channel that we'll be discussing right now might be considered the worst. And that channel is known as TeenzyCrew. Now, first things first here, I know when you hear the name TeenzyCrew, it sounds like this content must be made for teenagers. However, seeing the content that they animate, I think that's a bit of a stretch. Their content is marketed towards children, with them using meme characters that are popular with online kids. I don't think I need to go into any detail describing what's wrong with each of these thumbnails for their shorts. Some of them are showing straight up booty cheeks, or have balls covering female characters' chests. To be honest, showing anything here might get me demonetized. If this part is blurred, it means that I've had monetization issues with this video. But I'll put on screen now some of the less severe thumbnails for their shorts that I think I could potentially get away with. And I'm sorry, how is this allowed? In this short, you have Tung 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 Sahor, the Italian brain rot guy, quite literally wearing a pair of knickers on his face as a mask. Like, this is perverted. Ask yourself, who is watching this? Because it's definitely not Karen, the 35-year-old HR manager. It's kids! Scientists need to study this sort of thing, because my hypothesis is that your child could get dumber within 5 minutes of watching this utter slop. And I have a sneaky suspicion that whoever's behind this channel has some sort of pregnancy or maybe inflation kink. And the reason I think that is that a common thread seen amongst many of their videos is that the characters are often portrayed as pregnant or inflated. In one of their shorts, their most popular short in fact, it shows Thanos from Squid Game piercing Junhee's stomach, and then a bunch of water squirts out and a hand removes the baby. And I guess you could argue that this is meant to be some sort of satisfying content, but I'm doxing this again. I'm not buying it. I know that the people behind this channel know exactly what they're doing. But whether it's meant to be or not, TeenzyCrew was able to garner tens of millions of views between late 2024 and early 2025. And while most of their growth has halted over the past few months, it still averages about 100,000 views a day. Whether YouTube actually does anything about it, we'll have to wait and see. And it's just crazy to me that after seeing everything I have, this is still relatively mild for me. If you've seen these videos before, you'll know that they generally get worse the longer the video goes on, and this is only our second story out of 4. But because we're halfway through these stories, I'd just quickly like to remind you that if you haven't already, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're very fastly approaching 200,000 subscribers. It would be an absolute dream to reach it before the end of the year. So yeah, like, subscribe, get active down in the comment section. Let me know if there's an animator that you'd like to see me cover next. I'm sorry I haven't been able to get to all of the comments so far. There are just so many weird animators still to get to in future episodes. I promise Birdie and Potimer and those kind of guys we will eventually get to. But in the meantime, I need a break from YouTube animators pushing their fetishes onto their audience. It's time for a unique story concerning the largest creator that we'll be discussing today. And is one of the most mind-boggling dramas that we've had in this series. This is the drama of Ethobot. In case you don't know Ethobot, this channel specializes in making Minecraft animations. Minecraft animations have been very popular on YouTube for a long time now, with many of Minecraft's most iconic videos being narratives told through this medium. And in the case of Ethobot, he's been able to garner 8 million subscribers throughout his online career. However, in early 2025, Ethobot would be caught up in a controversy with another very large channel known as Animal Mace, who makes very similar content. Animal Mace will come out on Twitter and at Team YouTube, stating that 3 of their videos had been unfairly taken down because Ethobot had been abusing the copyright system, also linking a document that we'll dive into. This document is an eternity long, so we won't be able to dive into everything, especially given that Animal Mace and Ethobot have quite a long history together. Animal Mace actually used to work for Ethobot, and within the document makes some allegations about Ethobot as a person. These allegations about Ethobot as a person, I'm not really going to dive into, at least not until a little bit later when there's extra evidence supporting the fact, because what could I even say about it? I don't know Ethobot as a person, and I can't just take Animal Mace's word for it. Discord screenshots prove that the two were, at a point in time, friends, but have since clearly fallen out pretty badly. The main topics that we'll discuss in this segment are copyrighted thumbnails and someone known as Emma. So first, with the copyright, these are the 3 thumbnails in question that got hit. On the left are the thumbnails that I imagine to be Animal Mace's, and on the right, Ethobot's. It's no secret here that one creator was very clearly heavily inspired by another. Animal Mace stated that they didn't intend to copy per se, they just had different thumbnails tested, and the thumbnails that were the most similar to Ethobot's won, given that the 2 channels had a lot of audience overlap. As a YouTuber myself, I do think that this is a plausible excuse. Big channels do have the funds to make multiple thumbnails and test them, and if you're a fan of Ethobot's, it stands to reason that you would also be a fan of Animal Mace's too. When it comes to plagiarism on YouTube, I completely understand being upset if you make something that is original and unique, and someone sees that, decide to basically copy it word for word or frame for frame or pixel for pixel, and then their copy outperforms your original idea. It happens all the time, but usually it's larger channels that do it to smaller ones, not smaller to larger. The line between inspiration and plagiarism can be a thin one, and it's also one that's undefined. Different people could judge it differently. But if you think that Animal Mace definitely plagiarized off Ethobot, and therefore Ethobot has a very credible leg to stand on, what I'm about to tell you might just change your mind. Because within the document, Animal Mace provided evidence that Ethobot had done the exact same thing to another content creator literally dozens of times over. On the left, here are thumbnails, the majority, if not all of which were created by Amphmau, who has 24 million subscribers. And on the right, Ethobot's. In fact, in quite a funny twist of fate, Animal Mace provided evidence that one of the thumbnails that they received a copyright complaint about was itself essentially copied from another creator. Now, if you were to ask me personally, I'm not really a fan of any of these. In Austin Kleon's book Steal Like an Artist, he makes the claim that all art is essentially theft. Every creative has some sort of inspiration somewhere where they got the idea. But his point is that to steal from one person is plagiarism, but to steal from various different sources, taking a little bit from this and a little bit from that, that's what makes it a new, unique, and original idea. Every single one of these thumbnails, animal maces, and Ethobots seem to me to only be inspired by one. However, Ethobot was completely hypocritical sending out these copyright notices when his channel was guilty of the exact same thing. Animal Mace also alleged that Ethobot claimed that he was flattered that people would use his work as inspiration, so this would be contradicting that too. And we have a cringe warning here, by the way, because at one point Ethobot even got his mum to message associates of Animal Mace threatening legal action. I mean, this is where the drama gets kind of embarrassing, because what do you mean you're a grown-ass man and you're gonna get your mum to fight your battles? His mum sent a bunch of quite threatening messages saying that he had trademarked his videos, which isn't even a thing, and she came across as quite ill-informed about copyright law. Provided this is legitimate and the document isn't full of lies, I'm sorry, there are enough views to go round. Ethobot's channel was still at an all-time high in terms of views. He still averages millions a day. If this was really such a problem, Ethobot should have directly contacted Animal Mace and told him to stop, open up a line of dialogue. Of course, that would also mean that Ethobot himself would have to stop plagiarizing. But of course, the strange behavior doesn't stop there, and in fact, it might get even worse. At the start of this, I mentioned a girl called Emma. She was once a collaborator on Ethobot's channel, and when she was working for him, she was, dare I say it, a teenager. On the document, she claimed that when she worked for him, she was about 16 to 17 years old. And she came out with her own allegations about Ethobot, who she accused of some quite shady behavior. Firstly, she alleged that he was controlling towards her. In what some might call an abusive relationship, he apparently discouraged her from dating. In some instances, she apparently went unpaid too. So this guy, if it's true, is definitely stingy, and what Emma had to say about him definitely matches up to Animal Mace's personal anecdotes. Also, given her age and the fact that she was in high school, apparently the work hours were unfair. On this series, I have spoken about hiring teenagers before, and I just don't understand how these channels, who have millions of subscribers, could be so blind. If you've hired a teenager, someone whose main priority it is to get an education, you fit your schedule around them. It's not the other way around. Otherwise, you don't hire them in the first place. Actually, Ethobot allegedly told her multiple times that she's replaceable, which might have been another manipulation tactic that he employed to keep her on the hook. The document went on to describe the toxicity that Ethobot showed towards Emma when the two met up in real life. The two attended VidCon, and on the first day, she claimed to have met up with her friends instead of Ethobot, and his mother DM'd her saying that she wasn't going to pay for her hotel bills using her business card because she didn't spend enough time with him to classify it as a business expense. This is very strange for her to get caught up in, and it comes across again as financial abuse and a little bit exploitative. Between that and threatening to replace her and the controlling behavior that she alleges, I don't like the power dynamic that Ethobot and his mum have towards her. Also, am I the only one that thinks it's weird that he apparently cried in the bathroom after she told him that she wasn't going to be meeting up with him? Like, that's a little bit sus. Given the allegations made by this document, and again, they are allegations, I don't know Ethobot personally, but after all of these testimonies given by several different people, it seems as though he thinks he's Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, and his mum thinks that she's Olenna Tyrell, puppeteering everything that's going on. Like, you make Minecraft animations, it's not that deep. Like, there is no need, as probably a millionaire or maybe even multi-millionaire, to be exploiting teenage workers and not paying them a fair salary for the contributions that they make to your product. If what's been said in this document is true, his behavior and his mother's behavior towards the people that he interacted with is bullying, pure and simple. But from Minecraft animation to Roblox animation, there is some serious meat on the bone for this next one. This is the cancellation of ribs. Now, Ribs is a bit of a special case because this is the very first time in the Animayhem series that we have a female groomer. What a great day for feminism this is. If you've seen previous episodes of Animayhem, then you might understand that this case has quite a few overlaps with the case of Notiv. And just in case anyone wants to check out Notiv's story after this one, it's in part 3. Now, the major similarities are that A, Ribs, just like Notiv, was a Roblox animator. B, the age gap between herself and the person she pursued was roughly the same as Notiv's. And C, just like Notiv in the previous episode, a huge Google document was created, filled to the brim with screenshots, which attempt to make the case that Ribs' behaviour was out of order and that what she did could have very well caused her to end up in prison. Now, this document isn't as comprehensive as the 55-page one made on Notiv, but it still seems pretty damning, especially considering that faking all of these screenshots would take an incredibly long time. The document alleges that Ribs, born in 2004 and being roughly 19 years old at the time, attempted to pursue a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old male. Given that she was legally an adult and he wasn't of the age of consent yet, heavy criticism has come her way. In fact, the document alleges that the idea that he was obsessed with her was an aspect that she desired. Screenshots within this document show that the Roblox animator was aware that the user she was talking to was 15, and that she decided to seduce him because she was, in her words, bored and lonely, even going as far as sending him images of her body. The image sent is unknown, but given the context of this conversation, it appears as though she might have sent an image that was at best provocative and at worst nude. And given that the person she was talking to was 15, she may have sent a naked image to a minor. Let me clarify that this isn't confirmed, but it is a possibility. And some of the messages exchanged were straight up horn dog territory. In the span of just 3 minutes, the conversation went from Genshin Impact to things she wanted him to do to her, which if I spoke them into existence, this video would get sent straight to the Shadow Realm and I'd be like homeless Squidward shaking around a tin can of change.
Spare change. Spare change, ma'am.
In the end, the pair's relationship was said to break down, and later he confronted her about it. Ribs, however, refused to take the blame. In fact, she said that part of the reason she was sorry was that she might get in trouble for it. And, well, eventually she did get in trouble for it after a tweet was posted to Twitter which linked the document and the alleged evidence. For all intents and purposes, that was the end of Ribs on the internet. Just like the Trunchbull, people started throwing rotten food at her, she went far, far away, and children everywhere were safe from that point onward. Her YouTube account, which had more than 600,000 subscribers, was terminated, and all that remains of her now are re-uploads of her old content. During her final days on YouTube, Ribs kind of went off the deep end, saying that everything was fake and telling people that she wanted them to die, so I doubt that Ribs will ever return to the internet. Then again, stranger things have happened. Like, it would be incredibly strange if you guys enjoyed this video, but then you didn't care to check out the rest of the Animayhem series. That would be even stranger than a Ribs return. We've got much more of the same in the Animayhem playlist. If this is the first episode in the series you're seeing, feel free to watch the rest of them in order, or if you missed out on the last episode or episode 2, they're all in there. Click on the screen right now to give them a watch. If you enjoyed this, I dare you to say that you don't enjoy those too. With that said, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.